Hello and welcome to episode 2, part 1 of And This Is My Anime. It's me, your boy. Oof, that just sounds gross. I'm never gonna say your boy again. Anyway, I'm Daroth. I'm the host of the show on a general weekly basis. Weekly? Bi-weekly? I'm gonna talk about that at the end of the episode. Anyway, uh, this is the show called And This Is My Anime, a show wherein I decide to become an active member and driving force in my own life, where I've come to know that we all like to sit back and wait for that anime protagonist lifestyle to come at us, and that stuff will happen to us, but in reality that's probably not going to happen. If you're just kind of waiting all the time, nothing in your life will ever take shape, and it gets pretty boring. So, on that note, this episode we're going to be talking about going out and reaching out to an old acquaintance, friend, family member, whatever that you just haven't talked to in forever. And so by this time, next week, next part, whatever you want to call it, I will go ahead and take those steps, talk to somebody that I had a rather messy falling out with, and talk about the meetup with them and how that all goes. Yeah, I want to do this because it's specifically a family member that I haven't talked to in, I want to say, 5 or 6 years. It's been a while, and we were really close for a very long time, and then a death of another family member ended up breaking off pretty much everybody. It's one of those people in the family that's like the center, and then when they pass, everybody else kind of breaks apart. And so that's the situation that happened here. Yeah, real happy beginning to this episode. But yeah, off my initial impression, I'm just thinking it's gonna be very awkward. Very painfully awkward to initially meet up. And then beyond that, I think it'll get tolerable and hopefully things smooth out, but you never know if it will. Frankly, I'm more expecting like a, hey, you want to meet up kind of text from me, and then just kind of radio silence on their part. And that's their choice. I don't blame people for not wanting to get back together or talk again or whatever you want to call it. That's just the reality of people. None of us really make sense. But yeah, to give some background, this is a person I grew up with, I'm going to say, for like 70% of my childhood, I guess. Someone that's like always around, but like not always around. That doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to say you understand it. And so by this time next week, I'm going to have texted them, meet up in person. And that's I think the important thing, is if you can, at least speaking personally, I feel like it's real easy to just BS a response text or a call or whatever you want to call it, and like, oh yeah, no, you're cool, and then you just ghost them for the rest of your life. Whereas I feel like meeting up in person, both parties are very much active in that situation. You direct your attention to one another, and there's no way to really bullshit that as well as you could, or as easily as you could on a call or text. I'm just fumbling over myself now. But yeah, I think it'd be probably gonna just send a text, say, hey, let's meet up. Don't really care where, and just chat for a bit and see where that leads. I'm hoping it turns out well, but you never know. All in all, I'm really excited, very terrified, and let's see where it goes in part 2. Alright, and welcome to episode 2, part 2 of And This Is My Anime, when we're talking about how how it feels to go back and reach out to somebody that you may not have talked to in a few months, few years, so on and so forth. I reached out and finally talked to my cousin for the first time in, oh god, yeah, I think I said 5 or 6 years earlier. It was something different. I wasn't expecting it, but and granted, this may not work for everybody, and granted, that's not what this is all about. But for me anyway, I sent him the text like I said. I was like, hey, how are you, or hey, are you home? Mind if I walk on over? And he's like, sure, go for it. Go through the side door. And so, get in there, get to the house, knock on it, and it's real different, which is, I guess, pretty damn obvious, because, like, who wouldn't expect somebody to change over the course of fucking 5 or 6 years? I mean, I think the last time I saw him, I was 16, and now I'm early 20s. A lot of shit goes down in those years, at least for me. So life's gonna change. And it makes sense that for him, the same thing would happen. So, see him for the first time in forever, see him looking rough. But he kind of always did, so I don't know. He was managing. But all in all, we started going back and forth, and it was... If you ever have talked to some... Sorry. If you ever talk to somebody that you really just always connected with, much like riding a bike, it's one of those things where you get back into a conversation and you can go on and on and on and lose track of time and then almost miss your flight because of it. But, yeah, I got there, and then without even looking at the clock, I think we had talked for, I want to say, 3 hours straight, and I just did not even notice it. And because of that, I almost didn't get home to start driving out to the airport. I was going on vacation. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, it was just the most phenomenally excellent conversation I've had in years. And it's with somebody that I haven't talked to in years. And I guess that's the thing that I really acknowledged that I was missing out on after all this time, is that you talk to someone, and just because there was one small blip in your life that caused the two of you to fall apart, doesn't mean you can't get back together, that you can't, even if you don't acknowledge it, you can always just walk around it and let the past be the past, because you can't change that. That's just a reality. But yeah, so I went over to his place. Like I said last time, I thought it'd be awkward as hell, and I'm gonna say probably the first 10 minutes, he's like, "Oh shit, you're a lot bigger." And in my head, I'm like, "No shit, it's been a while." But yeah, it's just that awkward back and forth, and then once all the general housekeeping of like, "How are you doing? I'm great. How are you? What's going on? Oh, that's cool." That general BS gets out of the way. You really start reconnecting and talk about the present, your reality. I don't know. And that's going to change depending on who you're talking to, because not everybody's the same, obviously. But we were going back and forth having just a great conversation about everything from who we are, where we've been, and then what we're gonna be, or at least hoping to be, even where the next couple of weeks are gonna take us, because you never really know. And I guess that's the craziest thing about catching up with somebody from so far in the past, is it reminds you of how far forward you come, how much you've changed in the past 5 to 10, whatever your case may be, years. And it's much like in the last episode, it's one of those things that I don't think I could recommend enough, given any opportunity for you.
if it's one of those situations where you can think, hey, I haven't talked to so and so, and as long as there wasn't, I'll say, a violent uh breakup or whatever you want to call it, it's worth recalling everything that you missed out on. Because even, I'll say, worst case scenario, they say, fuck off, I don't want to talk to you, something along those lines, and then you just don't talk to them, and that's the end of that. Otherwise, you end up reconnecting, again, worst case scenario, and then dig up that old laundry, and then it's bad again. But at least you know. I guess the big thing that I'm trying to say is that you can't say, oh, I made everything better, I made everything worse by reaching out. You can't know either way unless you do it. And it's great to say that it did turn out great, because obviously everybody wants to be at a better point than where they were. So moving forward always feels so much better. And yeah, so really with all that in mind, it's just one of those topics that any person, or yeah, I guess person, I'm not going to say thing because there's not much you could really reach out and catch up with, but any person you can go back to after not talking to them, and it doesn't have to be a messy fallout. It could be a friend from however long ago they just got quiet with because life moves on. Reach out to them, because it's easy to forget your own reality. It's easy to forget that what you were at that time isn't the same as what you are now, hopefully, and that even at the very minimum you could see the progress you've made as an individual in your life, because sitting and waiting for them to reach out is just as likely to happen as you to reach out to them, which both of those are probably not very high. And I guess from the other perspective, it's better to be open, even if it's something small, like just talking for a couple minutes and potentially making that into hours, or not having anything at all, because that's just, you never know without doing it. So do everything you can. Kind of feel like I'm a little bit more rambly on this episode, but it's one of those things that by going out and doing it, I've like reassessed a lot of stuff going on in my life, and there's those things of positivity that you forget about, or like the personalities of another person that you used to lean on for one reason or another. When it bounces back and gets back into your life, you realize just how much you depended on that for that small section of your life. And so the logic and like positivity of another person that used to have so much of that really does make a difference in your own life. And then even if you don't necessarily lean on that idea for the rest of your life, knowing that this is how they got to be so positive, or this is how they got to be this way, taking that knowledge for yourself and trying to improve yourself because of it is phenomenal. And so with that in mind, I guess it's easiest to say this is going to be a thing now, ain't it? With all that in mind, it's easy to say that in the end, I'm glad I did it, because after all, I'm Daroth, and this is my anime. That just doesn't roll off the tongue at all. And I love it. So, thank you so much for listening, or watching, or however you're consuming this media. So, as a little piece about... sorry. As a little piece about housekeeping about what's going on, I currently am uploading on YouTube and SoundCloud. I found out that you actually need to have a publisher and whatnot for Spotify. So, unless there's any cool cats out there that want yeah, no, that ain't happening. So yeah, YouTube and Spotify or SoundCloud is where I'm going to be uploading. That's where I've always listened to podcasts. However, if you know of any particular platforms that you'd like this to be uploaded on, I would appreciate a comment about where to put this up on, because I'm more than happy to branch out. I just don't know where. And so the other tidbit about that is earlier in the episode I had mentioned, I think it was in part 1, about how I might be doing weekly or bi-weekly. As of now, I'll try and just do it, I'll say, every week, even though this is like week 3 after the first upload. Scheduling and life got crazy. But yeah, I think I'm gonna try and make one every week. Just record it, put it on up. I feel like that's better for my life, for everyone. But if you'd rather have it bi-weekly, or more frequent than weekly, but I'm gonna say weekly or bi-weekly. Put a comment about either. And on that note, I will be back. Back. I will be back next time with a hopefully excellent episode and maybe a guest. We'll see. I've been talking to a few people, so we'll see where all this goes. But hopefully, we'll get some exciting stuff going on next week. Goodbye, everybody.